Dear students, in this class we will discuss about the development of competition law in India, especially in the post independent scenario. And India, as you know that it is under the rule of British up to 1947, and much competitions were actually restricted, or you can say that the competition in the market was absolutely, it was not there. This was happened mainly because of the raw materials were transported to Britain in order to increase the efficiency of the British companies, rather than promoting the Indian companies at that point of time. And presently we can find provisions in the Indian constitution for promoting or promoting economic efficiency and the division of labor or division of economic, the concentration of economy is banned actually in the constitution. So, the provisions or relevant provisions which says that the state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. So, we already talked about the welfare of consumers, and Indian constitution clearly says the welfare of the people, says that in order to achieve that objective, the state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by the securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic and political shall inform all the institutions of the national life. So, it means that the constitution which says that it will always look into the economical and political life as well. And it says the state shall particularly look into, strive to minimize the inequalities in income and endeavor to eliminate inequalities in status, facilities and opportunities not only amongst the individuals, but also amongst groups of people residing in different areas or engaged in different vocations. So, and this is actually the reflection of the division of economic resources among the people, and especially article 39 of the Indian constitution, directive principles of state policy, which clearly says that the state must take into account in particular direct its policies towards securing that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. So, it means that the material resources should be divided among the communities, so that there should not be any concentration of economy, any concentration of the economy in the market. And again it says that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth and means of production to the common detriment. So, we could say that there is a parallelism between the objective of the antitrust law and this particular provision in the Indian constitution, which says that there should not be concentration of wealth. Actually, the enactment of the antitrust law was the concentration of wealth among the trust. So, here also in our constitution also says that there should not be concentration of wealth and the means of production should not be detrimental to the society at large. So, if you look into the scenario after post independent time, the government was going massively on the nationalization process. The nationalization process was rampant during immediately after the post independent scenario, and the government was going with planned economies through the 5-year plans. So, again, this is based on the 1956 resolution on social justice and self reliance of India, and India enacted the industrial policy in 1948, and these all nationalization and these planned economic policies were based on this industrial policy of 1948. And the government thought that the industrialization should be subject to the government regulations, because of the equal distribution of resources can happen, and which will ultimately leads to the societal welfare. And the government has given more importance to the public enterprises, and also through the nationalization process the government want to distribute the resources among the societies at large, almost through the equal distribution which they are propounded. And also the government wants to restrict the overall economic activity. For example, even the size of the plant, the production, its location, sectors, allocation of finance, and even allocation of loans from financial institutions. And it followed a license Raj system and a high tariff walls in order to prevent the imports or intrusion of the foreign companies into the Indian market will be successfully it is prevented by high tariff walls, and there were severe foreign direct investment restrictions, and the quantitative restrictions were put on all imports. So, all this comes together, it was impossible for any foreign company to operate in the Indian market. So, the Indian market was artificially made. So, which is we would completely say that there was no competition in the Indian market. So, everything was controlled or regulated by the government through the various measures, regulatory measures. So, if we look into the competition law, and it was not an easy task to move to a competition law at that point of time. Rather, the government has enacted, we can say that the government has come out with a legislation which is more restrictive in nature, known as the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act of 1969, which is popularly known as the MRTP Act in 1969. And the most planned economic development was happened in accordance with the Industrial Development and Regulation Act of 1951. So, it was, even though there was an industrial growth, it was completely a restricted license Raj system which was prevailed in the market until the 1990s in the Indian market. But the government was actively considered the government the various reports prepared by the experts in order to distribute, and the government thought that there should not be any concentration of economic power with few in the post independent India. So, the first such committee was is constituted, which is known as chaired by Mr. Hasari, which is popularly known as the Hasari Committee. And the Industries Development Act played a very crucial role in the development of industry. We would say that rather restricting the industrial activities at that point of time. And the committee come out with its recommendations in 1965, and the Hasari Committee have a lot of recommendations. So, the Hasari Committee studied the Indian market with two objectives, and the objectives, and they looked into or reviewed the operation of licensing under the Industries Act of 1951, and then secondly, to consider and suggest in the light of the present stage of economic development, and what should be the direction or what are the modifications to be made to the licensing policy. This is the very confined agenda of this Hasari Committee. And if you can see that what are the recommendations of this particular committee, and we know that the entire resource allocation was happened through the planning commission and the 5-year plans, and the allocation is happened through these 5-year plans and the planning commission to the different states of India at that particular point of time. And for example, the planning commission, so the committee recommended that the planning commission should come out with a plan and policy to the distinction. The committee should distinct between the conclusive targets and indicative targets as a priority areas. What should be the priority areas of investment and economic concentration, and then again regional allocation. As I already told you that if a developing country like India at that point of time or immediately after independence, the regional allocation is very important for the distribution of resources or efficient use of resources. And each plan period, also the 5-year plan period, also the allocation of industries should be reviewed every 2 years. This was another recommendation of the committee. Then the most important the recommendation of the committee was that the large industrial houses should not be given licenses for capital goods industries, because this is the committee thought that this is going to be more concentration of wealth in the big industries at that point of time. That is why the committee recommended for again a curb, again there is a hurdle on licensing to the big industries at that point of time on the capital goods. And another recommendations which you can see, the access to finance. The always it is not only the post the independent scenario, even today the financial institutions always favor the large business houses, and they have an their attitude towards a small scale industries are a stepmotherly attitude, and this is the British period policy which is followed by the financial institutions in India, even though there are a lot of changes in the present days. But this is one of the recommendation of the Hazari committee at that point of time as well. And also the government should prioritize the industries and also the products, a series of products which are exclusively reserved for small industries. In the last class which we discussed about the resource allocation to the large industrial houses and a harmonization between the large industrial houses and small scale industries. This is exactly is recommended by the Hazari committee as well at that in 1965 in India. And then the major fiscal policy and the tax concessions. The tax concessions for the major industries as well as the small scale industries, and there will be tax holidays and tax rebates, and should be there is a close connectivity between the resource allocation and efficiency of the industries which is connected with the fiscal policies. So, the fiscal policy also should promote the market and competition in the industry. And other recommendations, if you look closely into the licensing system, and and also the entrepreneurial aspect of the licensing system. So, the excessive curbs. So, the committee thought that the excessive curbs on the licensing system will reasonably assure the small scale industries to grow. If more curbs or more restrictions or regulations on big houses may leads to the promotion of small scale industries, this is the committee actually recommended. And also the cost of the products and the cost of imports. So, the committee recommended for a domestic production rather than recommended for import of most of the goods, even though it is uneconomical, because this is mainly in accordance with the policy of self reliance at that point of time. The government followed the self reliance policy at that point of time. And if you look into very closely look into, I am not going through the the specificities of the recommendation, but the committee also recommended certain exemption limits. The committee put certain exemption limits for the existence on capital equipments. So, they put certain restrictions on the capital equipments and also the project management. And we can see that this is the committee first committee recommendations which led nowhere else. And the second committee was recommended in the constituted in 1964. So, it was in even though it was parallelly set up in 1960. So, this was basically and mainly concentrated on the level of income disparity in the country. So, the committee was constituted in 1964 and mostly you can see that presented to the India. So, the committee found that the entire wealth in the country was in the top 10% of the population. And I do not think the scenario has been changed so far, and still the billionaires or the wealth in India is with the top 10% of the population, and the 40% of the income was with the 10% of the population at that point of time, and now it is much more.